Hello, this is Christian Her. In this video, we'll be talking about strings in PHP. First, we'll take a look at the characteristics of a string. Then we'll look at how strings can be created using two syntax, the double quotes versus the single quotes. Also look at how strings can be concatenated or joined together. I'll show you how to compare strings, very similar to how you compare numbers. And most importantly, how strings are parsed and displayed to the browser. That's a really important process, and you need to understand that part. I'll also show you the HEREDOC versus the NOWDOC syntax, what they are, why they're important, and how they're useful in PHP. And finally, we'll do a little bit coding demo. So strings are basically just a series of characters. Any of the characters in the ASCII table are considered characters. You can put those together, you get a string. It can be no characters, a single character, or n number of characters. Now a character is measured by, a binary bits, right? So 8 bits will make 1 byte. And so a character is 8 byte long. So that means we have a limit to about 256 character set, which is known as the ASCII characters. Okay, so PHP only supports those characters. Now, as of PHP 7, you have virtually no limit to the number of strings you can set into a string variable if you're on a 64-bit system. If you were an older machine, or if it's 32-bit, then I think there is a limitation to about 2 gigabytes of data, which is still pretty big. You don't want to even store that many, but you do have some limitation there. So generally, a string is like an array in some ways, and that each character is placed in a position that can also be referenced by an index from 0 to n. So we'll learn about that later when we talk about the functions to manipulate strings. So let's take a look at the double quotes versus the single quote syntax for creating strings. Say, for example, you want to display a string message called welcome to PHP, right? So you will set that to a variable called message, and you wrap that string or the series of characters with a pair of double quotes like so. And if you want to display something similar, except now if you want to put the double quotes around the PHP, the word PHP, as part of the display, then you would probably be tempted to do something like this. Okay, you put a double quote and then you put another set of double quotes around PHP in the string part there. What that does is you're going to have an error because it doesn't work. Okay, so what you should do then is you need to instead use a single quote around the whole text, whole string, and then inside it you can put a pair of double quotes. Okay, so you cannot put a pair of double quotes and then another pair of double quotes inside it, because what it will do is that once the parser finds the matching pair of quotes, it will consider that's the end of that string. So that's why you need to alternate the two. If you are using single quote as the main wrapper, then inside it you will use the double quote and vice versa. Okay, so that and if you want to do something similar, you should use a single quote around it instead of the double quote. You do something similar, right? So you wrap the whole string with the double quotes, and then the internal one will be with single quote. If you really still want to display double quotes inside double quotes, there are other ways to do as well. You have to use an escape character, which is a backslash, and to display the character. But we'll do that later in the video. Okay, so how you can join two or more strings together is in a process called concatenation, using the dot operator in PHP. In other languages may be different, maybe the plus operator, but PHP uses the dot operator. So, for example, you have a message or variable called welcome that contains the word welcome, and another variable to, and another variable to store the word to, and a third variable to store the phrase fundamentals of PHP. Let's just say that's the name of the course. And if you want to join all these together to form a single string, you would do something like this. You say message is equal to the variable welcome dot variable to dot variable course, and that's how you do it, right? But then what you get is the result on the right. You see that there's no space between the words welcome to and fundamentals of PHP. So when you run this kind of situation, every character is really important. Every character counts, especially if you want to display something meaningful to the user. So you, as a programmer, as a coder, you have to go the extra mile to make this look beautiful. So then you have to do this. So you add between the word or the variables welcome and to with a single space, another one after the to and with another single space there to form that beautiful sentence on the right, right? Everything counts. Okay, so you can also do something like this. If you echo a text that has the phrase total of 5 plus 4 equals, and then you would concatenate that with the expression 5 plus 4. Okay, what this one do is you will probably get a warning error and you may only see the number 4 gets printed. Okay, what this one does is that the parser would think or assumes that the text total of 5 plus will equal the space is going to be joined with the character 5, but then you have a plus there, so it gets confused. Okay, it doesn't know what to do with that anymore. And then, so that part gets, thrown out. It's an error. And then we just echo the number 4 out. Okay, so how to fix this is if you are dealing with an expression, especially with the number, numeric literals like this, you have to wrap it with a pair of parentheses like this so that the expression will get evaluated first, and then it will then evaluate or parse the text to concatenate that with the total, which is 9, so you get the correct display. So that's a little bit tricky there, but it's also important to use the parentheses if you are using expression at the same time when you are displaying some result to the screen. Okay, so comparing to strings is very simple. Unfortunately, in PHP, it's quite simple. So we talk about characters, any numbers, any alphabets, any other additional characters. I put this ASCII table here. As you can see, it's not complete. I cut off at the bottom because I'm running out of space here. But you get the idea. So every character in the keyboard has a number. Okay, so that's ASCII. So that number, it's the number that you will use to compare when you're comparing strings and characters. When you compare numbers, well, you compare the actual value, I suppose. But when you compare characters, then you actually comparing the number that is associated with the character. Let's just say I have the character P as assigned, uppercase P is assigned to string A, lowercase p is assigned to string B. So when you do a comparison, if string A is equal to string B, it's going to be false. And the reason why is because if you look at the positions with the number, they're completely different, right? So P, uppercase P has a value of 80, lowercase p has 112. So certainly they're not equal. And the second test, capital P is much less than capital P, small p. Yes, that's true. So you get true because 80 is less than 112. And lastly, that's false because it's, capital P is less than small p. And then the second test is you're comparing a string of 12 versus a number 12. Okay, so if you do a comparison like a string C is equal to number, then that is true. And the reason why that's true is because if you do something like that, if you do a comparison, PHP will actually explicitly convert one format to the other. Okay, so in this case, if you're doing string C equal to a number, then I think PHP will actually convert the number 12 of the string 12 to a literal number, and then it will compare those values and they're equal. If the number 12 has some characters in it, they may not be true, but in this case, it's true. And then when you compare the, if it's less than or greater than, both of those are false because they're equal. Okay, so that's comparison. Now, how do you parse strings? This gets a little tricky and also very interesting. So let's just say we have a variable called course has a value PHP 101. And if you want to print that out or assign to a message variable, you say welcome to, and then you would concatenate that with a dot and then the word course, and you get the result welcome to PHP 101 because the variable course will be parsed by the parser, and then the actual value will be placed in that position. Makes total sense there. You've done that all the time, and it's nothing new here. Now let's see how you can be this can be done by using double quotes, which is something called the variables are parsed, or we have this thing called text interpolation. What that means is you can wrap the variable inside the double quotes like this. Okay, so you don't have to use the dot notation. Say if you I guess typing. But as you can see, you just put the variable exactly how it is inside the quote, and make sure nothing's attached to it, right? And so when the parser reads this, it sees that, okay, it's a double quote, that means variables are parsable. Then it finds the first $sign, and then if a legitimate variable identifier is associated with that $sign, then it will treat that as a variable, and it will parse it. It will interpolate it, or convert it to the actual value stored in that variable. So you see the result on the right side is exactly the same as above. Welcome to PHP 101. Okay. Now with the single quotes, this is where variables are not parsed. Or I like to phrase it, what you see is what you get-ish, right? It's like exactly what you type is exactly what you see. Not true in all cases, but most of the cases will be like that. So if you were to do exactly the same as above, except now we're using the single quote, you'll see that the variable course gets displayed literally like exactly how you type it. Okay, so that means the $sign is not parsed. It doesn't even care what's in there, right? In this case, whatever you type there will be completely output to the console or to the browser just exactly as you type. So this can be very dangerous because you may be using some very sensitive data. I mean, like some variables, maybe storing some sensitive data that you may not want to expose to the to the user or to the world, but then you accidentally have a problem, and so you have all these variables get exposed, and they can say, aha, okay, there's a variable called course, there's a variable called ID, and something like that, and they can try to hack it. So it's also kind of dangerous when you do something like this. So be extra careful. Okay, so let's do another one. So I have fruit equals to the word fruit as a total equals 1. And this is just a very simple example. You may run into these kind of situations, but I just want to show you how you can solve this issue here. Say that I want to print that out or assign to another variable called message. I have total fruit, right? So if you print that out, it will be parsed to say I have 1 fruit, which makes total sense. Now, what happens when I change the total from 1 to 10? And I do exactly the same thing, I will get I have 10 fruit. But it should be 10 fruits, right? With the word fruits with an S plural. So how do you fix that? And so you may be tempted to say, okay, fine, I'm just going to add S to it. Well, when you do that, then fruits is being treated as a variable. And the parser says, hey, there's no variable called fruits. It's undefined. Okay, so that doesn't work. So then you would say, okay, fine, let's just put a space in it, which works, but then you have the output would look really weird, right? It will say, oh, it's a typo, right? Fruit with that space S doesn't make sense either. So the best way is to check the number of total. If it's only 1, then only display fruit, otherwise display fruits, right? So of course, there are many other ways. One way is just basically do this. You can do other ways where you can use the dot notation to concatenate, but I want to show you how you can use the double quote in parse variables inside the double quotes using a special character. So you say total is 1, then show the message I have total fruit, like you have seen up there. It will be just applied to 1 fruit. Otherwise, you would change a different text to say I have total, and then the fruit, you will wrap the word fruit, which is the variable itself, right after the $sign with a pair of curly braces. And any other characters after that will be displayed, will be parsed as regular text. So now you say, you see that I have 10 fruits, which is correctly displayed. Okay, so that curly braces there is really important if you are joining strings or characters along with your variable name. In things like you have a plurality, you have maybe an apostrophe or a $sign. that gets tricky, and so on. So you can use that to separate your variable from any other characters. Now let's take a look at the HEREDOC versus the NOWDOC. These are a special syntax that allows you to easily write code without having to worry about quotation marks. That's another issue that you have to deal with every time you deal with if you put quote inside another quote, which you saw earlier. So this one, the HEREDOC syntax follows the same rules as the double quotes. What that means is that variable will be parsed mainly. Say we have a title variable called title, and then have the value PHP. String, so to use the HEREDOC, you can assign that to a variable like string you see here, or you can just basically echo it out. Okay, but you need to use the 3 opening angle brackets together. Okay, no space between. There's 3 angle brackets, and then followed by a variable. Okay, it's very common to use in uppercase as a constant, but just any variable will be fine. You can put space after the last bracket there if you want, or you can put more spaces. In this case, it doesn't matter. But you cannot have any additional characters after the variable name. It must be on its own line, and then the rest of the text has to start on its own line. Okay, so you can write your text, "Hi, welcome to title." As you can see, I put double quotes there, no problem. I can put single quotes, double quotes, of any characters I want, and PHP will parse it very nicely, really beautifully. You don't have to worry about escaping these quotes there, and vice versa. It's very useful for if you write a series of HTML code, because when you do that, you add classes, IDs, you have to put single quote, double quotes. But you take all of that if you're using strings, but using the HEREDOC takes care of that issue. And then finally, when you're done, you have to close it with the same variable name on its own line, followed by a semicolon. This is very strict. You cannot have any spaces before or after it. Okay? If you do have it, it's gonna crash. Okay, you have an error, and it will not compile. So no spaces before or after the semicolon, and no space in between either. It's exactly like that, and then that'll work. And what that will do is you get the result, which is hello to PHP. As you can see, all the double quotes stay, no problem, no conflict there. Okay. The NOWDOC is kind of similar, right? It allows you to do multi-line, and it follows the rules of the single quotes. Okay, so the same variables, you start exactly the same, except you wrap the variable, the beginning of the variable here with a single quote to signify the parser that this is a NOWDOC and not a HEREDOC. Okay. So then the information or the text you display inside it, if you remember the single quote rules, is that whatever you type is whatever you get. So the variables will not be parsed. Okay, so if you enter that there and display result, you'll get exactly what you see there. I forgot the word hi. I just realized that, but you should see the word hi there also. It's hi dot welcome to PHP, welcome to title. My apology. So that's what you get. Okay, and again, the I guess benefit of using the HEREDOC and NOWDOC is that you don't have to worry about escaping all these punctuation marks. Whereas if you were to write this using a string, then you have to be concerned about those. Otherwise, you will have incorrect rendition of the output. So we have to take care of that. Okay, so I think that's all I want to cover here. Let's go into the code and do a few short demo. All right, so here in module 6, I'm going to create a file. I didn't want to copy that. I want to say file. We'll just call it strings for this one here. And I just do a few examples. Most of the examples are already shown in the slide. So again, strings, you can just do, let's put S1 is hello. Okay, and then S2. Like that. If you want to join together, S string equals S1 dot S2, right? Again, if you don't put the space in between there is not going to look the way you might expect, you know. And let me run this so you can see. Okay, so oh, I didn't echo it. Gotta echo it. So when you do that, then you're gonna get just the words hello there into all jumbled in together as one big word. So that's why I mentioned in the slide that space is important in a situation like this. And you have other options. You may want to do something like, so here we go, something like, okay, then I'll put a space here in the hello. Okay, you may do that. If you do that, then yeah, you don't need to do the dot here like that. But then, you know, the word here looks very ugly because you may want to use this again in the in other area of the code. So now, if you want to use that word along, then okay, I have to strip off this hello there, which you still can. So if I do that, then as you can see, I still get the same result because now it's this beautifully display. And if you want to remove the hello, what if you want to just count the size of hello, right? So in PHP, there is a function, we'll talk about function later, but one thing I want to show you now is the string length function that you can count the number of characters. So if you want to count how many characters in the word hello here, you just say, I put here string len, okay, it's a function, and then you put the variable inside here as 1. And that will tell me the length of string 1. So if you clear the screen, run that string again, so you see it has 6 characters. If you count this, I get 6 characters. Right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, space 6. The white space is counted, it's included. But really, they're just 5 characters. So how do you do that? Okay, so if you want to do something like this, then this space is important. You have to get rid of it. So let's just say now if I change that to say hello, hello. Okay, they're the same character, and if I want to compare them, and I'll just put here string 1. Okay, and I'll use the var dump, and var dump is a very important function that you can use to mainly for debugging purposes. Okay, if you want to see something right away, you dump it. You dump the variable and all its data, all its content, what type of data it is, how many characters, if it's a string, if it's a number, what the values are, so you can see exactly what's inside that variable at that instance. Okay, it's very important and very useful for debugging. So if I do that, you see, if I save it first, it will dump the help S1 to the console. It tells me it's a string, has 6 characters, and the actual text also comes along with it, right? And if you do the same with the other one, Control D to duplicate that line, and then S2, and if I run it again, you see that it dumps both of those. The first one is hello with the 6 characters, second has 5, so there's no white space. Okay, so that helps you a lot, right? So if you want to compare the two, I can do something like this. I can say, okay, so echo string S1 is equal to S2, and you'll see that that should be false. And let me dump this, okay? Because if you echo it, it doesn't show you the result. It just shows you blank. So if I do this again, you see that the result is false because there's a white space for the S1 and there's no white space for S2. Okay, so if you care only about the white space, I mean, if you put a white space here just because you want to format your string correctly, like you do here, then when you do any comparison with another variable with the same name, you want to remove all these white spaces before or after, like that, right? Okay, so what you do is you can trim it. There's another function, I'll cover that for now, and we'll do more later. So you can trim the white spaces. And to do that, then you basically, I'm going to do here, I'll say S1 equals trim S1. Okay, what it will do is it will trim only white spaces before and after a string. So now if I dump just the S1 and then I do a comparison, it should be true because now it removes the white spaces and then the expression would be true. Okay, as you can see, initially it was this one, this is S2, and then I trimmed off the white spaces, and then now it has just the word hello, exactly the same as S2, and when I do the comparison, it's now true. Okay, so that helps if you only have that and you want to use it for that purpose I showed you before, then use the trim to trim off the white spaces before and after. And there are other functions to move white spaces, like if you do something like that, you can remove all the white spaces as well, but we'll do that in a separate video. Okay, so I just showed you how you can concatenate strings and how you can compare strings. Okay, again, when you compare strings, you're comparing the ASCII value, the number that's associated with each character, and not the actual character itself. Okay, even though we may think that to be the case. All right, so I want to show you then the HEREDOC. Oh, actually, before we go there, let's do the parsing thing. Okay, I'll put that back to where it was before. Hello, there. Okay, so now if you want to say something like this, not equal, but I'll do another one. I'll just say we'll do str equals. You can do something like S1. So I mean, usually do something like S1 dot and then to PHP. Okay. So what I get is you get a message, welcome to PHP. That's all I want to show you down here. Okay, so you see that it says welcome. If I echo that out, let's dump that one. Okay, let's dump that out. So not S1, it'll be string. I'll just type it. Sorry, being a little lazy here. Okay, so I dumped that to the string, so you can see that it says hello to PHP, right? Should say welcome, but hello is fine. Okay, so you've seen this before. You used this before, and so instead of doing this, you can put the string inside the S1 inside the parenthesis, the double quotes there, and you can still get the same result. Okay, let's save that, run it again. You see that it would still be the same. Okay, because it's double quotes will parse the variable. Okay, if you put single quote, it's not going to work. So if you put single quote here and here, okay, you will get exactly what you see there. As you can see, it turns green. This IDE tells me that all greens are just strings, characters. Okay, whereas before it was kind of dark red like you see here. So if I run this, you'll see exactly that. So if you print that to the browser, you know, they can see, oh, you're using variable called S1, you know, so it may not be so cool. All right, so that is basically that's it. If you want to display everything exactly as you want, then use the single quote. If you want to parse something, use the double quote. Now, the double quote is also tricky when you run into a situation like this. Let me just go and, oops, comment that out. Let's just say I have a string, and I want to display the message something like, I mean, just for the heck of it, you want to display like the backslash with a quote and the word PHP, and then something like that, right? You want to display this exactly like this to the browser or to the console. How do you do that? Okay, so you would maybe do something like, okay, str equals, and then quote. You might put backslash and then PHP quote. Quote and backslash, and then close it. Okay, you see all the errors like it's popping everywhere, right? So because they're using double quote, again, if you use a double quote as a wrapper, then you're expecting this whole string to be enclosed inside a pair of quotes there. Starts here, ends here. That's what you think, but PHP says, nope, I found the closing pair right here. This is the only one. And then now this is like that. So that's completely invalid syntax now. Okay. So what you do is, okay, then you have to kind of go back and say, okay, I want to display this character. And you would use a slash to escape it. It's an escape character, one of the most popular escape characters. that means when you see this one here followed by a character like this, then the parser will treat this as a character, and then it would not treat that as an ending notation to end the quote here. But then you have another issue. Now I have this slash here because you are escaping this, and then this one escapes this one. So you still end up having this as the character being, oops, the end of that string. So you have to put another one here to escape that slash. Okay, so this one here escapes this, so you can display that. This one here escapes this, you can display that. So all of that displays this two characters. Okay, so now you have to take it on the other side as well. So same thing, right? I have to escape that quote, and I have to escape that slash. Okay, so you can see it gets confusing, as you can see here. But now it looks good, I think, right? It's green, and then green, and then green. So no errors, it's clear. So if I save this, if I go down here and clear my console and run it, you see that I got exactly the same message I wanted to show. A double quote outside here is just me because I'm outputting to the console, so it tells me that's a string. But if I were to do echo, then you see that it doesn't have that string, the double quotes around it. Okay, but you can see that it has exactly what I had it up here. I want to display that. But you go through all this hassle just to escape these two special characters. Okay, now if you were to do this using a single quote, and copy this, put down here, and we turn that off. And if you use a single quote like that, and I have too many single quotes here, so I don't have to worry about escaping all those characters. Okay, I can type exactly as I want, and I have the other one first, that one, and then the only thing is if it's the last one here, you have to be careful because for some reason, again, like I mentioned in my slide, it's not exactly what you see, what you get, some, right? So if you do that, it will escape that out, and for some reason it doesn't work because of the double quotes in here. So in this case, you have to escape that out. Okay, but I just show you had I do it this way. Okay, then if you're using double quote, I have to escape all these characters, same thing. But just to show you that if I do that, then I usually get exactly what I see here. Okay, without doing any additional escaping inside here. So that's one part. And single quote becomes important for that. Now, the third way is to use the HEREDOC, right? So if you use HEREDOC, like, so it's not really HEREDOC. I just put a notation here, the HEREDOC. That means you would do something like this. You can say, oops, wrong spot. String is equal to, you assign the result of this HEREDOC to a variable called string, and you would start here. We used to call it ELT because end of text. Okay, but it doesn't matter where you put it. You can put ABC, it doesn't matter. But usually ELT, end of text. And then on its own line, okay, so down here, make sure you end it ELT with a semicolon like this. Okay, and it must be on its own line. It cannot, it already puts it for me. I didn't have to do it. So it cannot be, you cannot have white spaces over here. As you can see, it has a red line, tells you there's an error already. Okay, no white spaces, no spaces here, no spaces in the front either. Okay, it must be on its own line. If you're familiar with SQL Server, SQL statement, it's like the go statements, right? Nothing can go after or before it. So then in between here, I can put the message I want. It's just exactly what I want to save. Just put here PHP, like that. And if I were to print this out down here, I did something quickly. Yeah, let me clear my console here. Okay, so see, it prints out exactly like that. I don't have to worry about escaping all these special characters in here. I can do whatever I want here. Okay, it doesn't matter, right? It doesn't matter because that's what HEREDOC is all about. And pretty cool. And yeah, you can display other characters too. I mean, you could say something like PHP says, and then S1, like that. So it would say PHP says hello, right? So if I go down here and run it, you see PHP says hello. down here. So very nice and clean if you are writing a lot of code this way. Now the other advantage to using this is if you are using this to write, HTML text. Say, for example, if you build a table, I'll leave that here. If you were to say, okay, string is equal to, div, and then inside div you have a paragraph, and the word hello here, you can put the hello S1 in here, and then space S2, right? And then put exclamation mark. It will say hello there. There's an extra exclamation mark. You don't need that. And you close out the div and you terminate that. This part is fine, right? If you do that, you'll see if you run the browser, and just show you the browser what it looks like. And then that will be, it's kind of small, but yeah, you'll see that message there in the browser. Okay, so that's exactly what you want to see, right? Like that. Now, if you want to go in here and say, okay, I want to have an ID, call it, hello, and then you have a class to style as well, and you can say the class called bold and so on. So you have to worry about all these. If it's using a double quote, it have to be a single quote, and then if you have a, another text in here, you may be something like, PHP is cool, something like that. So you have an issue with the double quote because I'm going to display double quote together, and then you have to escape that like this, okay, to make it all work. So if I save this and run on my browser, and then you see that it looks just like that. So I want to display the double quote here, right? So I have to go through all of that just to make sure the quotes match. If I accidentally put a double quote here, you can put that too if you want. You use double quote like that. If you like it, you just again have to escape it like that. Okay, and so make sure you only do that and not here. If you do that, you're going to see the word bow here. It may not be ideal, but you can do all of that. Okay, just to produce that text. So instead of doing this, you can use the HEREDOC, and the HEREDOC will give you a very easy way to do it. So you can say, again, okay, here I just type exactly what I wanted. I just put here a div ID of hello, class of bold, and then P, S1, S2, and then PHP is awesome. Okay, if I save that, okay, I don't have to worry about any of these escaping characters at all. And if I save this and go to the browser again and reload it, you see that everything comes in just exactly like you see here, very beautifully. So this is the advantage of writing something like this in your code. You can still, parse all these strings, all these variables in here. If you want to use a single quote, just use the NOWDOC, just use that, and then you get like that. If you do that though, you see here exactly what you see in the browser. You'll be surprised. I mean, some of those will get rendered, but some may not be rendered. As you can see, the HTML part will be rendered because the browser will parse it. It knows that this is text HTML, but the variable names will not be parsed. You can see that here it looks different. All right. Okay, so those are just some examples of strings and what you can do with strings. And strings are actually quite fun once you understand it, because they are very much like arrays, and sometimes they are used together to pass data back and forth between the two. Because you can extract data from an array, save that to a string, and you can convert the strings automatically to an array. So there's some built-in functions to do that for you behind the scene. It's very, very powerful. So I hope this is helpful. Let me know if you have any questions.